Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, the timer has been added to Torghast. Let's go take a look. Now, for those that like the, oh my god, it's over, Blizzard have ruined another feature before it was even born. I'm never buying another Blizzard product again. Doom and gloom. You know the type. This may not be for you. Instead, we are going to take a look at the changes to Torghast, and we're going to add a little dash of logic into it. And then, throughout this video, we are going to repeat what we have said pretty much since day one of Alpha, is let more people in so we can all test it and make the best possible product that we can get. Now, before we get into Torghast changes, let's look at how Blizzard have handled the Alpha so far. Trust me, it is going to have a bearing further down the road. So Shadowlands has been one of the best handled Alphas so far, I would say. You may not agree with the changes that they've made, either to your class or the game in general, or the features that they're going to be adding, but there is no denying Blizzard are trying. They want hands on all features, meaning once we go live, Blizzard can focus on more features, better stories, new content, not putting band-aids over failed systems like we had in BFA, and to some extent we also had in Legion. Now before people begin screaming at me going, shill! Shill! The downside of this is we're seeing a lot of features far earlier than normal. But, and here's the but, with a far smaller pool of players having hands-on. It means we have feedback from a very small select group. And if one whispers that a change is bad before we get to see the full picture, it spreads like wildfire. Nothing spreads like potential drama. And everybody starts screaming and hollering. Hence my joke at the beginning of the video about, ah! Yeah, because that's how people are. Now don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Most of the testers love this game. They stream it, YouTube it, whatever it may be. They just love World of Warcraft. And they have done forever and a day. So they will give feedback. They will have patience. Because it's the game they're going to be playing for the next couple of years. Sadly, there are some that just love to stir the drama for views, not caring what the outcome is, how it affects the expansion we're about to go into. World of Warcraft coming to console, spring to mind, anyone? Yeah. So it is up to us to look at this information and take a breath. Look at the pros and cons. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the new Torghast changes. So recently Towelliee interviewed Paul Kubit, and the idea of timers was talked about in Torghast. To many, this goes against what they really hoped Torghast was going to be. If you want a timer, head to M+. Let the rest of us have something that we can enjoy at end level. And I understand that. I, for one, have long had an issue with M+, and spoke about it in many videos. I don't want to see it removed, the same as I may not enjoy LFR, but I see its place within the game. Epic, immersive dungeons that take hours to complete with your friends. That's something I loved about the original WoW, about games like WoW. I love that, but it is a thing of the past, and it was... I'd hoped Torghast could recapture that feeling of this long, epic adventure. And the funny thing about the WoW we live in now is we talk about slow-paced content. A lot of people scream for, oh, we want this slower-paced content. We don't want rush M+. Many like M+, and they like the speed, but many also crave this slower pace. So we say as a community, well, but, people will use Bloodlust on cooldown, standing there for 10 minutes waiting before pulling trash. And then we say, but we won't, obviously, because that's boring, but some will do it. We then say, oh, but each to their own. You should be allowed to play the game as you want, as you see fit. That's fine. If you want to spend 10 hours doing 10 floors, let them. What does it matter? Oh, but wait. What if by not doing that, I can only get to floor 6? Well, they will then gain more things than me. More loot, more crafting items. And that's not fair, is it? So, we are going to do or not do, or some may not, but that's fine, but also not fine. Is that all clear now? Yeah. And so Blizzard have had to step in again and play mummy to the community. So now, to stop the arguing, we have a timer being added. And to be honest, 99% of roguelike dungeon adventures have the timer. We look at I think it's the Palace of the Dead, which is where a lot of us think Blizzard kind of got the idea from Final Fantasy. That has a timer. It doesn't really affect the game. It's generally understood that the timer is needed. It is part of the experience. And let's be honest, I think most of us knew that no matter what, it was coming, even if we didn't want it to. So let's take a look at our good old friends over at Wowhead and see what we may be facing. Again, this is alpha. All things can change. Numbers can change. Things can be tweaked. Nothing is final. First up, we have Torment, the Might. By the way, all these things are called Torment. These are what they call. So you've got affixes and M+. We will now have Torments in Torghast. Might of the Upper Reaches. Increases physical damage taken by the target 1% every 60 seconds. This effect stacks. Torment echoes remnants. Increase magical damage taken by 1% every 60 seconds. Breath of the Cold Heart. Yes. Decreases the target's damage done by 1% every 120 seconds. The Fractured Chambers. Fracturing Forces. Calling forth a Moorsworn Shadowstalker every 30 seconds while the target is not in combat. These minions have 20% increased health. This effect stacks. The Eye of Skoldas. The eyes upon the target. Calling forth Moorsworn Seekers every 45 seconds while the target is not in combat. These minions have 10% increased health. Soul Forge Heat. Oppressive heat from the Soul Forge inflicts 1% of the target's maximum health in fire damage every 5 seconds. This effect stacks. The idea is simple enough. The longer you spend on a floor, the harder it is going to get, meaning you can't wait for hours on a single pull. Now, a legit complaint of these changes adding a timer was that, what if I want to grab a drink? What if I take a walk? What if suddenly mid-run I get the urge to paint a Rubenesque masterpiece and have it framed? Or, well, go for a loo break. Each their own. Well, Blizzard have added a safe space, a safe area used to, 1, change your talents. At the moment, you can change it sort of anywhere throughout the floor. Now you'll be able to change it, we believe, only in these safe areas. But, more than that, it is a space where the torment will not affect you. So let's have an example, which I use the same one as Wowhead. You're on floor 10. As a side note, Torments will only begin from floor 10 and above. You spend 15 minutes clearing the floor. So therefore, just before you're about to jump in the portal, complete the floor and move on to the next one, you would have a 15% damage taken increase. 1% every 60 seconds. So as soon as you jump into the portal, you will appear on the next floor, obviously, in the safe area. At this point, your debuff will have reset. But as soon as you're out of the safe space, you will now receive 2% damage per 60 seconds. Not great. The debuff will start once you either leave the area, you enter combat, or you loot an item. It will not reapply this safe space buff if you return to the area. That is it. Once you are out, you better start running, boy, because it is time to complete the floor. This will continue until you reach the boss level, which I believe is about every 6 floors. After completing the boss level, the floor style will change. So before you may have had very much an ICC style, you know, the icy cold chill. You now might be in a fire-inspired lava area. But once that happens, the debuff will disappear, and you'll be replaced by a new torment for the next couple of floors. Now, I will say, my own personal little interjection here is that it would be nice if every time you went up a floor, every time you were in this safe space, you had a key that in some way would update. So, oh, you've reached floor 13 safe space, you now have a level 13 key. Just in case, if you decide to go for a break, cigarette, you decide to have a wee, a Rubenesque masterpiece painting, whatever it may be, and your game crashes while you're away, you're not going to lose all your progress, which is something that we have seen happen a lot in Horrific Visions. Now, if you didn't want a timer, then on the surface, this is pretty much as bad as it can get. It would appear to be the very worst parts of M+, the very worst parts of Horrific Visions. And I have said this before, but the numbers and the tuning and what these torments actually are can change. We need to bear that in mind. And we have to have hope. We have to have hope that Blizzard will be true to their word. They have said that they've learned from Visions, the good and the bad. We've been told that roles, DPS, tank, healer, have been set aside for a more spec-based focus. And that's going to reflect on mob health, damage pools, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I know, I rolled my eyes as well. Blizzard and balance goes kind of together about as well as oil and water. The simple truth is, we don't know how this is going to play out. We need more time, and as we said at the very beginning, we need more players to get their hands on this so we can give more feedback and see if Blizzard hears us and changes it. And my personal opinion is, as much as I hate the idea of a timer, I could see it coming. Let's be honest, we all could. It appears to be, which is the worry for me, very far from a soft timer. And that really does worry me. These seem like something that is going to drive my run, forcing me to go at a pace that I wouldn't necessarily want to go at. And that goes against everything I was hoping Torghast would be. If we really have these issues with combat reses, bloodlusts, and these big, meaty cooldowns, then why not limit them to 1 use per floor? Or not at all. This is Torghast. Blizzard have said themselves that what happens in Torghast stays in Torghast. So we can come up with something more interesting, creative, and crazy than, oh look, it's a timer, which I've said before is just dull. Now granted, these are not a simple clock, but instead a X damage taken or X damage reduction over time. But they really all boil down to, run you fool! And that is a shame. So how about Blizzard just open the floodgates? Let us in. Let us all make, one, up our own minds about how this affects, but also be part of making this work. We get it. The timer needs to be there. But let people in. Let more people into this alpha, this beta, so that we can not repeat the mistakes of the past in previous expansions. Prove to us that things have changed, that we are going in the right direction, which Shadowlands seems to be, and that this isn't just a glorified marketing beta, which we've had now since Mists of Pandaria. And look at the slow decline that we have had of these expansions. But that has been done, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everybody has a good day. Stay safe, and I will catch you all tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.